Hello again, Gills fans. Welcome back to the latest episode of Gills in the Blood TV. It is once again that time of the week as match preview show rolls around. The games keep coming thick and fast, and they don't get much bigger than this coming Friday under the lights at Meadow Lane. It'll be Gillingham taking on Notts County, a side who sit currently in that final playoff promotion playoff position. I'm pleased to say that I'm joined by Tom Williams tonight, special guest who's going to give us all the lowdown on the Magpies. I'll put his Twitter details at the bottom of this video. So go and give him a follow if you want to know anything about lower league football, National League football. And of course, Notts County, he is part of the Notts to Talk About podcast as well. So go and give them a follow. I believe their preview show will be out potentially by the time you're watching this one. So that'll be something to get yourself stuck into. Tom, appreciate you coming on. Understand you just got in from work. So as always, how you doing? And thank you.
No, thank you for having me on. Obviously we know each other, but I'm a big fan of the stuff you're doing. I think there's not many, if any, doing better stuff on YouTube. So yeah, I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And, you've not paid me to say that.
I haven't. I promise. I can't afford it.
But no, I'm really good. I'm looking forward to the game, and I'm looking forward to chatting about it as well.
Yeah, we both just said before we press record, unfortunately, it's a game that we're both going to miss because of it being moved to a Friday evening. It's not ideal because you're at university in Reading and obviously it's an away day for us and it's just going to be too tight in terms of finishing work and trying to drive up. So going to have to make do with iFollow, but looking forward to it nonetheless. Let's have a look at recent form. That always seems a good starting point, the last half dozen in the league. If we look at the Gills first, because obviously most of my viewers are Gills fans, so they know all about that. So it's 11 points from the last 18 for Stephen Clemence's men. There's been wins against Sutton, Colchester and Accrington, a couple of draws against Forest Green and Walsall, and that narrow defeat at Stadium MK a couple of weeks ago. So that sees the Gills currently sit 10th with 43 points from their 29 games. Notts County is a team that we obviously got our eye on. They currently sit 7th with 44 from 29. They have 8 points from the last 18 available. Them games include big wins at home to Doncaster and Morecambe, followed by 4 games without a win, though. There's been defeats to Tranmere by 4-2, and most recently Mansfield. And then a couple of contrasting draws, 1-1 at home to Barrow, and then that ridiculous 5 each at Blundell Park against Grimsby Town a few weeks ago. Tom, I think my first question is, bearing in mind that we semi-regularly appear on Gabe Sutton's EFL debate show, and I know that the question about Notts County's defence has come up on numerous occasions, and I said at the start of the transfer window, I thought it was a case of tweaks rather than wholesale changes. But the last 3 months from the start of November must be a little bit concerning, because in that time you've only won 4 games in the league, if I've done my research correctly. I mean, goal scoring's never been a problem for Notts County stepping up into League Two, but it seems to be the other end. And yeah, in that period, you're averaging 1.07 points per game, which is not promotion form. It's very much the opposite.
Yeah, to be honest, I can't believe we're still in the playoff positions. It seems a bit crazy to say that we're still in the top 7. I think that's the weirdest thing that I've noticed, is that every time we drop points, it's like you're looking over your shoulder. And I think this would be the weekend where we would finally drop out, because it's now down to 1 point. Well, it's down to goal difference, isn't it? So
yeah, you'd have come out last week if we'd found a winner at home to Walsall as well.
Yeah.
We'd have leapfrogged you into it. So it was frustrating from our point of view. Again, it felt like another sort of opportunity that had slipped by. But yeah, the form simply isn't good enough at the moment, is it, from a Magpies point of view?
No, it's not. It's not. I think someone said the other day they've got 14 points from 14 games or something ridiculous like that. It's not good enough. But what is a positive is that, well, I say it's not a positive, but what is perhaps explains it is the manager situation. We've changed managers. Obviously, to be fair, our form has been poor before Luke Williams went, and those 2 big wins you mentioned actually were like, I don't want to say they played over the cracks, because they didn't, like, that's harsh to say, but they were very like contrasting to all the other results we've had. Like, those were massive wins, and all the other results we've had have not been like that. But yeah, like the Grimsby 5-5, we didn't even have a manager, so I guess it's a difficult period to assess. But what I will say is that we said this on our preview. I said this, that we've come through. Hopefully, you'd like to think that's been our worst run, because we can't carry on playing like that and getting results of that. So if we've come through that run and we're still in the top 7, if we can now turn it round, then things should be pretty good. Like, we could have quite easily had a bad run and plummeted down the table. We've managed to hold on to the top end, so that's the positive to take from it.
Absolutely, and I suppose when you are going for a rough trot of form, you do have to desperately search for those positives in amongst all the rough stuff, don't you? 2 words that you've already mentioned, and it's a person that we have to talk about simply is Luke Williams. Phenomenal, I think, is the word I've written down in terms of the job that he did in his 20 months at Meadow Lane. 58% win ratio is absolutely staggering, regardless of what level you're watching football at. And of course, the magic of promotion back into the Football League after a few years away, probably too long, I think, in terms of certainly the Notts County fan base. But I'd also say in terms of football fans in general, I think Notts County have always been classed as an established Football League team. The oldest, I believe, if I've done my research correctly. So yeah, in terms of what Luke Williams did was, as I say, phenomenal. It was always going to be hard, I guess, for anyone coming in to try and replicate and fill those shoes, because they are massive shoes. I've seen a few tweets from yourself on Twitter or X, for whatever reason it's been changed to in recent months, talking about your affinity towards the main man before he moved up to the Championship. Just tell us, if you can, in sort of 1 minute, just how good Luke Williams was for Notts County and the legacy that he leaves.
Oh yeah, fantastic, isn't he? And like, yeah, he's superb. What a guy! Like, on and off the pitch, just such a I say on the pitch, in and out of the dugout, just such a top guy. And like, yeah, the promotion, like you say, that's the right way of putting it, actually. I mean, that's the first time someone's used that word, but legacy. He has left a legacy, and he might have only been at the club for 18 months, but it's one of the most significant 18-month periods in the club's history. And like you say, the oldest club. And to say he's had an 18-month period, which is one of the most successful that we've ever had, that is pretty good legacy, I would say. Yeah, the football we played was incredible. And there were times this season when we probably thought we'd go again, like we'd go straight back to back. That's how good he got us playing, and how much he had us believe in as well. I think that's a big thing. The stats will tell you how good the football is, but you can't put like a tangible statistic, I guess, other than attendances, on how the fan base have felt. And there's not been a manager that has united the fan base like Lou Williams. And I think that is a testament to him as a person, I think, as well as a manager, because he united a fan base which historically is quite divisive, and it continues to be now. He united a fan base for a full season where there were very, very little fallings out or disagreements within the fan base, because everything was just so good.
That's it. And I think even to add to the sort of achievements is the fact that just the very calibre of the club that you was having to go toe-to-toe with in the National League as well. And Tom did make an appearance on Welcome to Wrexham, if you've not seen it. I noticed that the other day when I was catching up with it. Wrexham are a phenomenal football team, regardless of your thoughts surrounding how they've got there or why they've got there, and take out the whole Hollywood element and peel away them layers of the onion, so to speak. You had to go toe-to-toe with probably one of the best teams that's ever been assembled at National League level. And the fact that you took it as close as you did in terms of the title, because we know the National League's a different beast. There's only one that goes up automatically, which I think is incredibly harsh, because you ended up with a ridiculous points tally and then had to go through the rigmarole of the playoffs. And I think you were 2-0 down in the playoff final as well, which is fine if you can guarantee that you're going to win that playoff final in the most dramatic fashion. But I'd imagine when you finished the regular season, you were thinking, this just doesn't seem fair. The fact that we've got this amount of points and we're now going to have to go and play another 2 or 3 games to try and get ourselves back into League Two. So again, that's testament to Luke Williams' ability to raise the players, I suppose, because despite having such a good season, there was probably a tinge of disappointment that you'd not won the title and you was going to have to try and go through more fixtures to get yourself where you wanted to be.
Yeah, 100%. And that was like the most crazy experience of playoffs because of that as well. Like it's not like the Football League playoffs; it's a one straight shootout in the semi-final. So if you lose your semi-final game,
that's it.
you're out. Yeah, and we were. I think the incredible stat. I think we led in the playoffs for 2 minutes across. We played both went to extra time. One went to penalties. The one played the full extra time. Got like a 100 and whatever minute winner. Like that's like insane. Like we were leading for literally a couple of minutes of the whole playoffs, and yeah, I think that added to the story. Like it was just unbelievable. But all the fans love to look back on those games, but I would not want to go through it again. So if we are in the playoffs this year, like I'm just so grateful. It's a two, we're not there yet, but if we do get there, it's a two-legged thing, and it's not all riding on. Your season comes down to literally 90 minutes. I know we're in the final anyway, but if we made the playoffs this year as well, it'd be a bit. I assume we'd finish 7th, 6th, maybe if we go on a run, but that'll be completely different to finishing second. And really should already be up. Like you say, we should have been on the beach celebrating.
That's it, because you see all the other divisions and it's 2 or 3 go up automatically and then the playoffs, whereas the National League is just 1 goes up and then there's this weird eliminator from sort of 2nd down to 7th in various guys. It's all a bit complicated. I don't know why they just don't make it the same for every division, but we all know about it before the season starts, I suppose, is the flip side of the coin. In terms of players and the here and now, I mean, we've seen nicknames like the Holy Trinity historically for the great players, George Best, Dennis Law, Bobby Charlton, that type of thing at Manchester United. I think there was a slightly different version of it 15 years ago when they had Ronaldo, Rooney and Tevez. So what do we call Jody Jones, Macaulay Langstaff, David McGoldrick and Tan Crowley then? Because their numbers this season are absolutely ridiculous. And if you was a person that didn't watch football or didn't delve into it like we do, and you said that quartet of players have got 45 goals and 29 assists between them, which is 74% of your goals scored, I hasten to add, literally 3/4, which is absolutely ridiculous. You'd think that Notts County would be running away with League Two. Just how good have they been before we get onto the other side of the coin, which is the issue and why you've now dropped to 7th?
Yeah, well, we should be. Like we've got those 4 are a joke, and I think that's the thing is that there's often the few conversations today online. It was like because Jody Jones has been nominated for Player of the Month, and I
did see the Mansfield fan who said he's got no end product and made me laugh. I was like, that's a ridiculous thing to put out there. How can you say that?
Yeah, exactly.
Got 1 assist away from the best ever tally in the division ever, and we've got still 20 games to play essentially, but he's got no end product. Brilliant.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I think. It was brilliant. I saw that. It was fantastic, and yeah, like that's the thing is that people will think it's crazy to say, oh, Jody Jones, in my opinion, is the best player in the league, and then you've got, like you mentioned, those other 3 who will be in the conversation for sort of, if you name the top 10. Those 3 would be in the conversation. Whether they'd be in the top 10 or not is up to debate, but they'd have to be in that picture. And like to say that sounds really ridiculous that we've got 4 of the best players in the league. And you think, well, if you've got all these amazing players, then how come you aren't running away with it, like you say? But like you can't not. Those 4 like are just superb. Like they are. And I'd probably be unpopular for saying this, but you'd actually, out of the 4, like the least. He was probably the best at the weekend, just gone. But the one that's probably been least impressive all season is McGoldrick, which is crazy to say when he's David McGoldrick. Like he's been all the way. He's been in the Premier League not that long ago. He's just like an incredible player, and we were so lucky to get him back. So yeah, like I just can't speak highly enough of those 4. I mean, Jody Jones especially, like you say, he probably will break the League Two assist record, and he just gets better and better every week. So yeah, those 4. That was, I mean, you're probably going to come on to it, but that was like the incredible thing is those 4 have probably got like more goals than you have put together. Like, which is
Macaulay Longstaff's not too far off. I think we've scored 28 or something. And he's got 20 in League Two on his own. And that's a conversation. And I've written down, Tom, the flip side of it with Notts County is unfortunately 54 goals conceded at 1.86 per game. Reminds me very much of Kevin Keegan's Newcastle back in the mid to late 90s, for those of a certain vintage, which Tom may be, which makes me feel old. But yeah, only Sutton, 59 conceded, they're 23rd. Colchester, 58 conceded, 21st. And Swindon, 56 conceded in 17th, have conceded more goals. That has to be a worry, as much as, I suppose, if you just keep scoring, then it almost doesn't become an issue. But we've seen in the last couple of games, you've only scored once, you've lost one and drawn one. So if something gives the wrong way, then you're going to end up, like you say, dropping out of the playoffs fairly quickly and would struggle to get back in there. You're essentially the polar opposite of us, aren't you? We keep saying if we can get it right at the top end of the pitch, then we're a very good side in this division and we get in the playoffs comfortably. You're probably saying if we sort out our defensive issues, we've got enough goals in us that we comfortably get in the playoffs.
Yeah, it's exactly that. It's exactly that. I wasn't around for Kevin Keegan's Newcastle, but I do obviously have seen that we're at the same strip, I suppose. And yeah, I'd love it if we beat them. Obviously, I've seen that as well. So I do. Yeah, the comparison is fair, very fair, because you've hit the nail on the head as well with the polar opposite. We are like we got so much attacking power and talent. You know, it's just ridiculous. But then the thing is, we can defend as well at times. If that run we've mentioned recently, we've conceded. I think it's 11 goals in that last 6, but 9 of those goals came in 2 games. So it's like we have this propensity to concede loads of goals in one game, but then we've kept a couple of clean sheets in that run. Only conceded 1 against Mansfield this time round. So it's like we can do it. It's just like sometimes we're just too open. Like it's just
that was going to be my question. Is it a byproduct of just the way that you're set up because you are so offensively top heavy with the players that we've mentioned, or is it individual errors, mistakes, that type of thing, or a combination of both?
Yeah, definitely a combination. I think it started. People thought it was the personnel and the individual errors, and defenders aren't good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I think in the probably only since the turn of the year, people have started to ask the question. Actually, hang on, like we play the back 3. It's meant to be a back 5, but it is only a 3. And if one of those centre backs pushes forwards, because that's what we asked them to do as well, is get like everyone gets involved in attack. Basically, you're asking 2 or 3 players like to do a lot when a team's countering and stuff like that. So yeah, there's definitely a bit of the way we set up is definitely contributed to the goals, the amount of goals we've conceded. Like I think that's what the new manager Stuart Maynard is going to try and do, is make it structurally a bit more defensive. I think the last 2 games will skew that. The 2 games they've been in charge for, I think people have seen it and gone, oh, okay, Notts have gone the other way and gone really defensive. But we've played Barrow and Mansfield, who are 2 of the best defensive teams in the league, 2 of the best teams in the league. And I think that probably, and we're playing you guys next, which again is another team who are really good at defending. So I think we're going to see, people are probably going to get this picture in the head that under the new manager, we're really like, we've lost our attacking mojo. But I think it'll just be unfortunate that we've come up against 3 teams that know how to defend really well.
Be interesting to see how it pans out, won't it? And I'm just quickly looking at the reverse fixture back in October, which you won 2-1, and I thought was harsh on us. I didn't think we deserved to lose the game that day, but sometimes you just have to tip your hat to a lad who comes on and makes his debut and whacks one in the top corner from about half a mile. So fair play to the lad Makari who scored the winner, but I didn't think it was a game where you outplayed us. We knew you was going to have more ball and that type of thing, but I think if you look at the stats, we outshot you. Same old issue. We can't hit the back of the net enough. I think Scott Malone, our left backs, scored a good goal that game, and he's one of our joint top scorers in the league, I think, with a striker and who's no longer with us, and a centre half. So again, it all comes back to the same issue that the Gills are having. We're obviously recording this early in the week, Tom, so there's no official team news in terms of injuries and that type of things. But how do you see Notts County lining up Friday night? I don't suppose there's a case for huge amounts of changes, is there, just because you've lost 1-0 to Mansfield and drawn 1-0 with Barrow? Because like you've already alluded to, two of the best outfits in the whole division at the moment. So you're not that far away again, are you? I suppose is like we've said about Gills all season long.
Yeah, no, I don't think there'll be any. I'd be surprised if there's changes on Friday. Really, talking to Macari, he's not really played all that much since he went on. After that, he's gone on to sign permanently for us, and then not really played much. We've brought in Jaden Warner on loan from Norwich, who had his debut at the weekend, and he looked really good. So he's obviously completely new to us, but he looked good in the back three. But there won't be there's those four we've spoken about, and Aaron and Main are sort of our front five. And then we've also signed Scott Robertson in January, who's coming in midfield.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about him because we had him a few years ago, and he was very, very young at the time. We got him from Celtic on loan under Steve Evans. Obviously, Steve being Scottish, he had a lot of links up that way. Just felt he was very, very tidy, but very much a kid in the men's game at the time. So I was just wondering how you found Scott Robertson. Again, it's only a small sort of sample size you can go off, and I totally understand that. But it was just interesting to see how he's developed since that spell. I think probably about 3 years ago now.
Yeah, well, I mentioned before that the Notts fans are divisive, and that he's one that's already divided opinion.
Okay.
You know, in my opinion, he's had a really good start. Like you said, he looks really tidy. I think is how you would describe him as a player, actually. And he buzzes around a little bit. He pops up. He makes okay, fair enough. He's given a few loose passes, but he's not played very much in the last 6 months. So he's going to have a little bit of ring rust, so to speak. But I like him, and other people are saying that already written him off. So it's typical, sums up the fan base really, which
we've all got them.
Yeah, exactly. It is what it is, and I think he's I like him. He's made a good impression so far. So yeah, I like him, and in terms of the team in general, I don't see much change. We're waiting on a visa for deadline day signing. Gambian forward Jatta. I don't think he's going to be ready in time. So I don't think you've got to worry about him. But he's exciting. Hopefully, I mean, if he is, like you say, if we're recording this early in the week, if he gets his visa and he flies over, then amazing, and he will definitely be on the bench. But I don't see him being available, unfortunately.
Just cracks me up. We're sitting here recording about two League Two sides, and you're talking about a Gambian forward waiting for a visa, and we've recently signed a Colombian. It's just mental to think that Notts County and Gillingham are signing these people, especially with a link back to Kevin Keegan's Newcastle and Tino Asprilla. It's quite funny to make that link that we've gone international. Just your system quickly, Tom, before we get your score prediction and we start wrapping this episode up. Obviously, I suppose that system, and you look at that front five and it's ridiculous if you include Aaron the main in that. But I suppose the flexibility is that David McGoldrick now, with his age, means that he can drop a bit deeper and leave Macaulay Langstaff as the focal point, which then allows Dan Crowley the licence to almost push on and be a second number 10 with Bostock and Robertson being the shields to that back three. So it's quite a flexible system. It'd be interesting to see how this goes, because I'd imagine we're going to play the same system, a back three. And you talk about centre halves stepping out, and I've been quite enthused with the system in the sense that it allows Shadowgi and Connor Masterson to step out with the ball and try and create overloads in midfield. But whether Shadowgi starts for me, I'm not sure, because he's made 3 big errors in the last 3 games that have cost us goals. Twice diving in when he's not at too near the touchline, and then unfortunately having a horrendous touch at home to Walsall at the weekend, and then trying to correct his own error and essentially turning into a goalkeeper on the edge of the 6-yard box and giving away a penalty. So it'd be interesting to see how that battle goes. It'd be interesting to see how much Nemain and Jones switch sides and go up against Scott Malone and I assume Romeo Hutton. I think that could be in a really interesting battle throughout the afternoon. And then I suppose it comes down to your potent attack against our more steady and reliable defence than yours as to where this game ends up going. But looking at the Gills quickly, I'd make 3 changes personally if it was up to me. I think Shadowgi just needs a breather. As I've just mentioned, these 3 errors in the last 3 games. I think there's a case to maybe bring Robbie McKenzie in, who's not had a load of football. But you could play him as the right-sided centre-half and just switch Connor Masterson, leave Maxima in the middle, because then it would give you licence to change to a 4-4-2 diamond if you had to, because you could let Robbie step into midfield. And then obviously Hutton and Malone would just play as fullbacks. And then you'd have... So for me, it'd be Turner in goal, McKenzie, Ema, Masterson as your centre backs, your wing backs Hutton and Malone. Then I'd have Ethan Coleman, and I'd take out George Lapsley this week, and I'd go with more experience in Timmy Dieng. I'd take out Conor Mahoney, who for me has been one of our most creative and biggest attacking threats, and I'd play Johnny Williams. I think Connor's just got off the ball a bit in the last couple of weeks, so it wouldn't do him any harm. And then I'd persist with the Ollie Hawkins and Josh Walker partnership. You can't keep chopping and changing strike partnerships. You've got to give them time. And then similarly to you, if your lad gets over in time, we'd have the sort of unknown element of Jorge Hurtado, I think his name is. I'm still struggling to come to terms with that one from the bench. So I think there'd be flexibility in that system. And yeah, it's got all the makings of being a really interesting football match, because I think both teams are probably just below where they want to be, considering where you were at the start of the season. I'd say top three was probably the aim if you went back to 3 months. Ours has always had to be the playoffs ever since sacking Neil Harris and saying that Stephen Clements was going to come in and improve us because we were only 4 points off top at the time. Final question before I let you go, because I am conscious we've gone on a little bit longer, but it's been really enjoyable, is score prediction.
Yeah, so as well, just to very briefly say as well, just to touch on the point about the Wingbacks, just because I wanted to bring that in. And yeah, that's going to be really fascinating battle, I think, because we switched the Wingbacks at the weekend for the first 65 minutes. Whereas the game against Barrow, they played the whole game on the sides have been most of the time on the natural side, I guess you would say, on their preferred footed side. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting. And I think you've actually got two of the best fullbacks or wing backs in the league. Like those two are, you'd make a case for them getting in the team, especially like either of them in the best team league. So really exciting battle. And I think that kind of sums up how I see the game. It's going to be really close, I think. I think you'll score. I know you've struggled for goals in general, but I think your last 6 you've scored, something like that.
Yeah, we have scored in each of the last 6. All right, it's only been 1 in 5 of them, and 2 at Accrington to win from behind, which is another thing we struggle with. And obviously, you're a lot more potent, but you give up more chances at the other end. So again, it adds to the mix of just how this game's going to play out. It's got sort of loads of sort of mini battles and little sort of extra things in the big war, so to speak.
Yeah, exactly. And Josh Walker probably concerns me, is in behind, a bit of turn of pace and stuff like that. But I've gone for 2-1. I'm going to not, so I'm going to stick with 2-1. I just think we've got enough firepower to cause you enough issues. I think you will get a goal, and I think it could easily, obviously sit on the fence a bit. It could easily go either way, but I think it's a close game, as shown by the table. There's only 1 point between us. Even though, and that's the beauty of it, there's two different teams playing. I guess we're not playing totally different ways, but we both got the similar idea now. With Clements is trying to play a bit better that style and things like that. But the 2 different outcomes in terms of, it shows you can get points from winning games 1-0, or you can get points from winning games 5-4. It doesn't really matter. So yeah, I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to Notts. Probably a little bit more hopeful, because I feel like we need a win just to get a little bit of confidence behind the new manager, and just to get the run going, because you do feel like if we did lose, or probably even draw on Friday, we'll definitely be outside of the playoffs come the end of the weekend. And once you're out of those playoffs, it's very hard to get back in them.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? I suppose at this point, with the finishing line certainly starting to come into view, albeit fairly in the distance again, I suppose you want momentum, and if you were to lose to us, it would make it more difficult. You're on that slippery slope. I think there's probably more pressure on you being the home side, certainly in terms of recent form. And like you say, you want Stuart Maynard to kick on, because there's not been a win yet under Stuart Maynard. You want him to get that first one as quickly as possible. But thought process is pretty much similar. Was sort of heart and head. Heart was saying we might nick it 2-1 because you give us so many chances. So if ever there's a team we're going to get a couple against, it could be Notts County. But the flip side is obviously the amount of goals that you do score. So I bottled it and put 1 each.
I like it.
Like I say, I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a really good game, and it could have a big say. I'm not going to put the label of 6-pointer on it, but it's certainly a game that you feel could have a big say in terms of where the team's seasons go from here on in. I think our last 2 games of the month for Stockport and Wrexham at home. So I think by the end of February, from a Gills point of view, certainly we're going to have a better idea of where the campaign is going to go. And Tom, again, thank you for coming on. That's gone on a bit longer than we'd envisaged, but it's been a great chat. So I really appreciate your time. And obviously, I hope you're rubbish on Friday. But after that, good luck for the rest of the season, mate.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me on. And like you say, I've really enjoyed the chat. So don't worry about it. It's been brilliant.
Excellent. Gills fans and Notts County fans, if you're still watching at this point, thank you very much. Like I say, I'll put the descriptions, the details, for Tom's Twitter handle and their podcast down at the bottom. So go and give both pages a follow. Brilliant content, always churned out from Tom. So I'm assuming, because I've not listened to loads of it yet, that the podcast is exactly the same. Yes, as you've already said, you're already aware, unfortunately cannot travel up for the games. There won't be a match day live this week. But myself, Reese, and a Notts County fan, hopefully, I might tap up Tom again afterwards, we'll be back at the weekend to review the game in our match day review show. And then after that, it's fast forward towards 2 games in a week as we look forward to Swindon and then Newport County the following Saturday. But until then, please keep hitting that like button. Please keep smashing the subscribe. And until next time, up the Gills